back to Kim Reed. We will be continuing the Swiss Family Robinson. Chapter 2, A New World. We soon glided away from the wreck and into the open sea. We all looked for land, but we kept spinning around and around until I learned how to steer the boat properly. We had left the dogs as we could not carry them, but as we sailed away, they jumped into the water and came after us howling and barking. They made their way to the boat and rested their paws against it until we pulled them in, taking pity on them. We were especially glad to see the happy face of our own dog, Turk, barking us on board. We rowed until we came near land. Past some cliffs we saw a green, grassy patch among some palm trees. I wish I thought to bring the telescope, I said, just as Jack pulled it from the pocket with a laughing twinkle in his eye. I could see through the telescope that there was a small, flat beach we could land on. As we reached the shore, everyone jumped out but Franz, who was packed in a tub so tight he had to pull out by his mother. The dogs ran ahead, and flamingos and penguins and other birds on the beach began to shriek as they approached. We quickly unloaded our boat, setting the chickens and roosters free to roam. We all searched madly now for a place to spend the night. Soon we found 2 fallen trees which we wedged into a frame. We draped the sailcloth we had packed in the boat around the trees, fastened it with pegs, and we made ourselves a kind of tent with an entrance we could close. Then we set the boys to search for moss and grass to spread out for our beds while I made a fireplace near a river that ran next to the tent. We lit it with twigs and dried seaweed, filled with a pot with water and food from the ship, and started to cook soup for our dinner. Fritz loaded the guns and left one with me as he went out to explore the coast beyond the river. Ernst and Jack went to look for shellfish in the shallow water along the shore. As I worked, I suddenly heard Jack yell and ran to him with an axe in my hand. I found that a huge lobster had clamped itself onto its leg. No matter how hard he kicked, he could not get it off. I pulled it from him and Jack hit it with a stone. Never hit in anger, Jack, I told him. Still, I was glad we had another piece for our meal. When we cook it, said Jack, I'm going to claw all to myself. I found oysters, but I didn't get wet catching them, said Ernst, who had come running up to see what the noise was about. Ernst, I scowled at him, you go and get some of those oysters for our next meal. And don't let me hear you complain about getting your feet wet. We all have to work now to survive. I also found some salt in the rocks I had dried from the sea, added Ernest, trying to make good. Nice work, I answered. Go bring us some. That will be wonderful. He used a small stone to scrape some of the salt from the cracks in the rocks and brought it back in his hands, no longer worrying about getting his feet wet. As the soup boiled, we suddenly realized we had no spoons to eat with. We could use the oyster shells as spoons, offered Ernest. Great idea, son. You lead the boys to the oysters and clean a few out. They went to the doctor, and Jack and Ernst brought a carefully balanced stack of the oysters back. With that, Fritz returned from his hut with his hands behind his back. I didn't get anything, he said, frowning. But his brothers had seen behind his back, and they were pointing and yelling. Sure enough, Fritz pulled out a small peg he had caught and was hiding behind his back. He told us he had found on the other side of the river. The lands were quite beautiful, with a sloping shore and field. Best of all, he said, it's filled with all sorts of things that we can have floated in from the wreck. Tomorrow we will have to go and get them. We should also go back to the ship and get the animals. They live on the other side of the river. Did you see any more shipmates? I asked. No, he answered, but you should have seen the strange way this pig behaved. There were lots of them, and they hopped instead of walking. Meanwhile, Ernst had looked at the pig closely. This isn't a pig, he said. It's an agouti? I learned about them in school. Look, it has teeth like a squirrel. Oh, scoffed Fritz. the pig. He's right, I said, looking closely. It is an agouti, which is a large rodent. I've heard of them before. While we were talking, Jack had been prying open oysters and now handed them to us. We all gulped and tried them and were left with a shell for spoons. As we ate, we saw that the dogs had surrounded the agouti and were about to attack it. Fritz leaped up in rage, hit one of the dogs hard, and threw stones after them. I quickly chased him and gave him a good talking to. Fritz, he said, you have to watch your temper. You have scared the dogs, and we need them to help us. You must be calmer. Fritz felt badly, and he said he was sorry. By now it was getting dark and time for rest. The birds we had brought back were all nestled around the rocks. We all settled in after a prayer. The children were surprised at how suddenly the night closed in so near to the equator. Quite quickly we were alone in the total darkness, except for our campfire. It was not quite the first night we had imagined when we set out to be farmers in a new land, as part of a colony to be started in a new world. But it was a night we will never forget in our new home. Okay, so that's the end of chapter 2. Join me next time for chapter 3. Bye!